Greetings, abnormal psychology students. Today's session is going to be on how to do your disorder paper. So this is all information that's in your syllabus. I'm just going through the syllabus with you. The idea here is that I would love for you to have deep understanding of at least one disorder in our class and learn about several other disorders in our class from your fellow students and from me. So, in order for us to teach each other, we need to have some casual team presentations. I promise to help you with your presentations, and as I've mentioned, everyone usually gets 100%, 100 points for their presentation. The only thing that would cause you not to get 100 points is if you don't look like you knew what you were talking about at all during your presentation. It's not how well you do it, how flashy it is, how comfortable you're up there. It's, did you know some content that you could share with the class? And I very, very rarely ever have a student that doesn't seem to have been a participant in the development of their presentation so that they wouldn't know enough to at least make a contribution. So behind that presentation is a paper where you learn and write about several aspects of the disorder. So what I did was I made a template that's on Canvas that you can insert the content for your paper. You could also call it an outline. And I made it so that you're sure to include all parts in the order I prefer. So I'm going to try to pop that template up now and give you a window into it. So it has a very brief outline. Starts with your name, the title, the symptoms from the DSM-5, unless we've talked about an exception because you picked a disorder that's not in the DSM-5. The prevalence, that means how often does this disorder occur? Worldwide prevalence, Modesto's prevalence, MJC prevalence, and you can use 24,000 students for MJC, and then our class of roughly 100. Worldwide, I don't know what it's supposed to be for the world, but you can look that up. So what I'd like you to tell us is worldwide, how many people are likely to have this disorder? How many in Modesto? How many at MJC? How many in our class of 100? I think this really shows you two things. It shows you how prevalent the disorder is. Maybe it's more common than you thought, but also many of the disorders, it shows you how rare they are. Okay, the next thing you would talk about would be causes with theoretical orientation. Now this means you would talk about the causes of the disorder from a particular theoretical orientation. So let's say you like behaviorism. What would behaviorism say about the cause? Let's say you like the psychoanalytic view. How would the psychoanalytic view explain that cause? If you like two theoretical orientations, please tell us how each one of those would explain the cause. A lot of the time you'll need to combine whichever theoretical orientation you like with the neuroscience view, because there are so many disorders that have specific neuroscience causes to them, what's going on in the brain and the endocrine system. Next, you would talk about treatment, again with theoretical orientation. So how would a cognitively oriented therapist treat this disorder? How would a humanistically oriented therapist treat this disorder? And when you're looking at treatment, you need to find the treatment that the research says is the most effective treatment, and then determine which theoretical orientation that comes from. And if medication is used, be specific about the types of medications that are used, the combinations, the names of the medications, things like that. Then in your paper, you're going to just describe a video case that you'll be using in your presentation. I would like, as much as possible, when you talk about the case, talk about symptoms, causes, treatment, and outcome, if you can learn that much about the case. And then a second case, and most people get their cases from YouTube, Vimeo. Lots of cases are posted in the UK for some reason, so we often have cases from England. Just pick not just the first case you find, but look at several cases and pick the best cases to present to the class. And these can be video cases, or if you know someone that wants to come to our class and talk to us about having the disorder, please invite them. That would be absolutely outstanding. And if a member or two of your group pick that disorder because they happen to have that disorder and they want to be the case, that would be absolutely welcome also. Then you finish with your references. You need the author, the title, the source of the publication, and the date. Don't just give me a URL. I want this information just like every paper would contain, so that when we find that we want more information in the paper, we see the author cited, we want more information about that, we go to the references, and we're able to find that information for ourselves. That's the whole point of references. So in a bit, I'm going to show you some formats for references and talk about how it's pretty automatic now that you can just click on format the reference in APA style, and it just automatically does it for you. I want you to number your references. I know that's not normal, but sometimes since I'm requiring 8 references, then I would like for you to number them so that I can see specifically that you included 8 references. Now I'd like to show you an example paper that you also have on, whoops, that doesn't work, on the link on our Canvas page. So John Kavanaugh was really into abnormal psychology. He did a great job on paranoid schizophrenia. He starts with the symptoms, and he starts with talking about the DSM-5 and gives us the information on the symptoms of schizophrenia. Next, we would be expecting to learn about the prevalence. So he talks about the global lifetime prevalence, the population of Modesto, which when he did it was 214, which would mean 857 people would have schizophrenia in Modesto. In Modesto Junior College, there would be approximately 97 students with schizophrenia. And in our class of 80 students at that point in the semester, there was a 30% chance that at least one of them had schizophrenia. And we do almost always have at least one student who has schizophrenia in our class. But doesn't this information make it interesting? Look at how many people have this disorder. I don't usually have you represent it like this. I usually just have you represent it as a plain number of people in the population that would have it. And I prefer that it be done like this. So 857 in Modesto, 97 in Modesto Junior College, and maybe 30% chance that there's at least one. Okay, coming up next would be the causes. So as he starts out with, specific causes of schizophrenia are unknown, but then from a neuroscience view, so there's his theoretical orientation, and he talks about also neuroscience, and then he liked the psychoanalytic view. So he talked about the psychoanalytic explanation for why someone would have schizophrenia. Next, no, that's a long, schizophrenia is very complex, and John was very into neuroscience, so he's got a lot of information. Now, treatment. So since he liked the neuroscience view, we would be expecting him to talk about medication. And since he likes the psychoanalytic view, we would be expecting some psychoanalysis, but here he switches to the humanistic approach, which is okay as long as you explain why you've done that. 2 case studies. He talks about Syd Barrett, the legendary figurehead of Pink Floyd, having schizophrenia. And he also talks about John Nash, who was featured in the movie A Beautiful Mind. And then the last thing is the references, and they're numbered, and all 8, well, 8 are included. He went to, wow, okay, I guess this is why I use it as the example paper. He had 23 references, but you don't have to have 23. You only need to have 8. Okay, So if your writing skills should be equivalent to English 101 with an A or a B, if you don't have that, then please go to it's actually a tutoring center now in the library for help with that. And then I mentioned also that you can submit your paper to NetTutor on Canvas and get feedback. Each student writes his or her own paper. The papers are not supposed to be similar. You may share references, and actually cases would be fine. So you have to turn it in before the due date. There are no exceptions except for like you're hospitalized. You are not going to have to submit a paper copy. Only put it in Canvas in the assignment box. Okay, make sure you number those references because that's one thing my students don't do for me. So here's some information in your paper about citing references. West and Kardashian suggest that the narcissistic personality disorder. Do you like that? Do you see what I did there? Okay. And Katy Perry, Russell Brand, characteristics of narcissism. Again, that relationship didn't last very long. Okay, so it talks about symptoms, causes, and treatments, and we've been over that. So here's the grading criteria. Oh, and the point, papers will be graded on the day of your presentation, and then you can see your score on Canvas within 2 days of your presentation. So everybody turns their paper in on the same day, but I don't grade them until you make your presentation. So here's the grading criteria. 5% for symptoms, 0, 2.5, or 5 points, depending on minimal, adequate, or thorough. The prevalence, you get 5%. Causes, 30%. I'm very interested in the cause being described with the theoretical orientation for the full 30 points there. Treatment, 10%. Again, describe the techniques of therapy and include your theoretical orientation. 5%, please fully describe a case. There's another 5%. Now look at 40% for your sources. Each of the 8 references are worth 5 points. So make sure that you use 8. I think if you use 8, you've done a pretty good job of covering the information available about that disorder. So that's why I picked 8. So I'm hoping you will aim for 8. Okay, that's everything I have to say to you about the paper at this time, and I look forward to reading them. They're always very interesting to me.